Hi there, my name is Marley. Welcome to my channel, or welcome back. Today I am taking on quite the challenge and I'm going to be tier ranking every single book series that I have read. I know this is a bit of an older trend, but I never did it. A lot of people have done this. I never did. So I really want to tier rank all of the book series that I've read in the course of my reading career, as many as I could remember. I'm sure there's a few that I forgot to include here, but I pretty much stuck with book series, but not book companion series. So you're not gonna see a lot of those romance companion books, but just series that have like continuous stories kind of thing. And a lot of these I read during my preteen years, like in 2010. So hopefully I will remember my thoughts on all of these. But let's get into the tier rank. Actually, before we get into it, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. You know, all the YouTube things. Okay, so these are the tiers I came up with. Hopefully they are accurate. So starting at the very top, we're gonna have Hold Up. So this is like my top tier because a lot of these are old series. So this is basically saying like they were good back then and they hold up now, they're still good. Or I read them recently and they're like a top favorite of mine. Then we have A Good Time. So these are gonna be the next best that I would definitely recommend, but I maybe don't consider my ultimate favorite. Then we have Neutral, which is pretty self-explanatory. These are ones I don't really have strong feelings on either way. Next we have Can Stay in 2010 Please. This is kind of like, it's really bad and you should not read it now, but maybe it was a good time back then, but like, would not recommend now. Then we have A Fever Dream. So these are definitely going to be more of like the older 2010 books that I just simply cannot remember, and it almost feels like a fever dream because they were so weird, or like I can't even recall what they were about. And then finally we have DNF because there's definitely series that, you know, you just start and you don't really want to continue, you DNF them. So yeah, let's get into it. So the first book that's popping up here, the first series, is the Arc of a Scythe series by Neil Shusterman. This is a YA dystopian series, kind of sci-fi actually, and it takes place way in the future where technology has advanced so much that humans actually don't die naturally. So there are these people called scythes that get appointed, and basically it is their job to randomly kill people to keep the population down. And that is the premise, but this whole world is so interesting, reading about all of these different technologies and ways that this world has evolved. We follow two main characters who become scythe apprentices, so we're following those young, relatable teen characters. And this is definitely going in Holds Up top tier. This is one of my favorite series or trilogies that I've ever read for sure, and I highly recommend them to everyone. I feel like this is almost like a Hunger Games level, like really good in my opinion, and they create this really interesting futuristic world with a lot of like plot twists and stuff like that. I don't talk about it a ton because I just read the series before I started my channel, but yeah, definitely recommend this one. Then we have The Fifth Wave by Rick Yancey, I think it was. Of course, this was a popular one that got adapted into a movie, but it is a alien story basically. It's kind of dystopian aliens. So aliens are like taking over the world, and there's these different waves of them taking over, and we're following our main character and her younger brother. I don't really know how to explain it very well. It's been a while, but I think I didn't hate this series as much as a lot of people. I think a lot of people would hate on this, and I don't even think people finished this series, but I actually did, and I didn't think it was that bad, so I might put it in more of like a neutral territory just because like not a ton of it sticks with me. Okay, then we have Angus, Thongs and Full Frontal Snogging. So this is the Georgia Nicholson series by Louise Renison. So this is a British rom-com series for young adults. It's kind of like a teenage version of Bridget Jones. I loved this growing up. It was definitely different from a lot of the other books that I read. So it's very comedic, very cute and romantic, and I'm gonna put it in Holds Up because I feel like if I reread it now, it would still be really quirky and hilarious, and the main ship in it is like OTP tier for me. I need to go through this quicker because this is gonna be really long. Okay, then we have the Vampire Diaries books. I only read these books because I was a really big fan of the show. Honestly, not as good as the show. I think everyone knows that. So I'm gonna put this in Can Stay in 2010 Please. These actually came out in the 90s, so I guess they can stay in the 90s, but I remember them being pretty cringy, honestly. Okay, I was speaking of Bridget Jones' Diaries, so I read the very first book and that's it. So I'm putting this in the DNF category. If you guys didn't see that vlog where I read that book, basically this could also go in the stay in 2010 category because it's just a product of its time. It's not really good anymore. It fat shames way too much than I was comfortable with, and the romance was not as heavy as I would have liked it to be either. So I did not want to continue this series. Then we have Carry On by Rainbow Rowell. So this is a fantasy series about Simon Snow, and it takes place at a school for magicians. It's definitely inspired by Harry Potter and is kind of like a parody of Harry Potter. The first book is probably one of my favorite books, or if you asked me when I was like a teenager, I would have said it for sure as one of my favorite books. I'm wondering if it holds up now because I did complete the series last year and it didn't quite hold up as much as I wanted it to, so I might just put it in a good time. Then we have The Last Hours by Cassandra Clare. This is an ongoing series. I have read 2 out of 3 and the third book's coming out next year. I'm gonna put it in holds up. Like, this series I love so much. I'll probably put all of Cassandra Clare's books up here, to be honest. Spoiler alert. But the Shadowhunter world is just one of my, it is my favorite series. So then we have The Chronicles of Narnia. So I read this when I was younger, you know, back when the movies were coming out. It was like my Harry Potter because I didn't read Harry Potter. So this was like the reason I got into like British culture is through Narnia. So I know it was good back then. Would it hold up now? I don't know, but I'm gonna say a good time just because I don't feel like I would love it as much as like I did when I was younger, but probably should reread these books. Then we have Cinder, which is a series by Marissa Meyer that is like a retelling series on fairy tales, but has like a sci-fi fantasy aspect to it. It's very fun. Cinderella is a cyborg. I'm still reading this series, so I can't really completely rate it, but I'm gonna put it in a good time because I am genuinely enjoying this series a lot. I think it has really cool ideas. Then we have, the Mortal Instruments series, another Cassandra Clare. I'm just gonna put it in holds up. Oh, what's going on? Oh, Infernal Devices was after. Okay, it can also go up there. I won't talk about it too much, but if you don't know, the Shadowhunter Chronicles follow these people called Shadowhunters, and they are half angel, half human, and they fight demons. And there's other mythical creatures in the books like warlocks, fairies, werewolves, and vampires. So it's literally like the perfect book series for me. And all the different series follow different generations of Shadowhunters. Okay, then we have A Court of Thorns and Roses by Sarah J. Maas. This is a series I am in the middle of currently, and it is about fairies. It is the series that people call fairy porn. I'm gonna put it in a good time because I haven't completed the series, so I don't really know if it will be a top favorite for me. I did rate the first 2 books 5 stars though, so it could be. Okay, then we have Dan Brown's book. So I put this in, it maybe shouldn't be considered a series, but I consider the Robert Langdon books to kind of be like a series. They follow Robert Langdon, this symbology professor, and he goes on a bunch of different adventures and a bunch of different countries. You guys probably know Angels and Demons and Da Vinci Code, all those books. I feel like I'm gonna put it in holds up. Absolutely love these books. They're kind of not my typical books that I would like. As you can see from this list, it's mostly YA fantasy, but I think it's really nice to like mix it up with one of these books. They're kind of like thriller mysteries, so I absolutely love those. So it has to be top tier. Oh, then we have another Cassandra Clare series, so I'll just put it up there. Then we have The Darkest Minds. So this was one of my favorite series back in the day. It follows this society where randomly a bunch of kids died, and the kids that survived were given these magical powers, and our main character is like the most powerful of those types of powers that you could get. So all the kids get put in these like camps to try and control them because they're so dangerous, and then eventually she escapes, and you know, it's this whole uprising. I'm gonna put this in a good time because I feel like I absolutely loved this series, but looking back, I don't know if it would like completely hold up. I don't know if it's like one of my top, but I remember really liking the romance and really liking all of the little cast of characters, found family kind of thing. Then we have Divergent. I think everyone knows Divergent. It is about, again, a dystopian society where everyone gets grouped into these different factions, and then our main character Tris is actually divergent. She has the qualities of like multiple factions, and again, it's this whole uprising story. I think this would go in a good time, because I feel like I was really there for the hype back in the day, but looking back, I don't really consider it one of my favorites anymore. Definitely back in the day, and I feel like if you read it now, it would still be good, but yeah, it's a classic, you know? YA classic. Okay, moving on, we have An Ember in the Ashes series by Sabaa Tahir. This is a series I have not completed yet, but it is, again, YA like dystopian fantasy about, wow, this video is gonna get repetitive. Maybe I won't explain this one. Anyways, you guys know this one. So I'm gonna put it in, I want to say Hold Up, just because I'm currently reading it and it's holding up. Like, it's really, really good. It has like a lot of exciting, surprising factors of something like Game of Thrones, lots of like plot twists, craziness going on. It's definitely not perfect. It definitely has its flaws, but I feel like it's really action-packed, exciting. I'm reading it in 2022 and loving it. So, oh, what is this? Oh, Ender's Game. I read this only because I read my boyfriend's books in this one blog I did, and I don't plan on continuing, so I'm gonna put it in the DNF category. It wasn't the worst book I ever read, but it's kind of a complete story, and I don't really feel like continuing with all the other books that this author wrote in this world. I feel like it's just a cash grab. I don't need to read those. Okay. Oh, speaking of DNFing, we have Aragon by Christopher Paolini. I'm gonna put this again in DNF. This is that kind of popular YA or middle grade dragon series. I recently tried to get back into it this year, and I just really could not get through the second book. So I'm probably DNFing the series. Yeah. Ooh, then we have a classic, Evermore by Allison. I can't see the author here. I think it's Allison Noel or something. Let me know if you recognize this series. It was called The Immortals. One of those series that had like 7 books or something in the series. Completely not needed. Pretty short books, and it was obviously just like a cash grabs because series sell. This was about a girl who survived a car crash, but all the rest of her family died. So she's very emo, you know, very classic YA. And then this guy, he must be new to school or something, dark and mysterious. They end up falling in love, and then it's about like how he's immortal and she's immortal. I'm gonna say can stay in 2010 because clearly from that description, like, it has stuck with me. I do remember it. So it's not quite a fever dream, but I don't think it would be great now. Then we have the Fallen series by Lauren Kate. This was about a fallen angel, a girl who falls in love with a fallen angel. Didn't really stick with me a ton, but I actually think this series, I think I quite enjoyed this series, thinking about it. So I'm gonna put it in neutral. But again, let me know, do you guys feel nostalgic seeing these series? Oh, then we have 50 Shades of Grey. I read this really just to be in with everyone, in with pop culture. I was obviously a big Twilight fan, so also read this since it's Twilight fan fiction, but I'm not really into like reading about smut or BDSM or anything. So I'm gonna say can stay in 2010. I don't know when it came out, but like I wouldn't want to read it now, and probably you guys would not want to either. I feel like there's probably better books that are like this that are out. Ooh, then we have The Gallagher Girls by, who's this author? Ali Carter. This is a middle grade series that I remember completely binging in high school. It is about this school for spies, for girl spies specifically, I think. It was just so fun. I remember, I think there was like a mystery in each book and a lot of like fun action, and that the romance was pretty cute too. Guys, I might have to put this in like Hold Up because I feel like I read it when I was older than the recommended age. It was probably for like 13-year-olds, and I read it probably like at 17. So I feel like it would hold up for like a slightly older audience just because it's so good. Okay, then we have a Ghost Girl down here. I don't know who it's by, but I remember reading like only a couple of these books. So I'm gonna put it in DNF. I don't think this is one of the YA series I really tried to keep up with or bought or anything. Then we have Gone by Michael Grant. So I'm not sure where to put this because I haven't finished the series, but I remember loving the series when I was reading it. So I might just say a good time. But this is about a world where all of the adults just disappear, and only everyone under like 14 is still in this town, and they all have powers. For some reason, all these kids develop powers. It's really fun. I remember it would get a little bit confusing because there were so many characters, but I really should finish this series. I really should. We have nothing in Fever Dream so far. Maybe I should not have made this a category. Whoops. Then we have A Good Girl's Guide to Murder by Holly Black. This is one of my newest favorite series that I've read on this channel, so it's definitely gonna go and Hold Up. I feel like I recommend this all the time. It's a really great YA thriller series about this girl who is like a teenage detective and just solves a different mystery in each book. It's really good. Then we have Trials of Apollo by Rick Riordan. Yeah, I've read every Rick Riordan series, so we still have to get to these. Trials of Apollo is about the god Apollo, but he gets like punished by Zeus to become a human. And so throughout the whole book, he's going through all these different trials as a human to try and win back his godship. It's a very fun premise. Apollo, if you guys know Greek mythology, is like one of the most fun gods. He's like the sun god, so he's very like happy, optimistic. I'm gonna put it in a good time just because I don't think it was like my favorite Rick series, but I definitely had a good time. Hunger Games, you know it's gonna go and holds up. One of the best YA series I think ever, and I think everyone can agree on that. Then we have Hush Hush. So this is again a Fallen Angel series, and I don't remember it as well as Fallen, and I don't think that I completed this one. So I'm not sure if I should put it in DNF or a fever dream, just because I can't remember it very well, but I also DNF'd it. So let's put it in a fever dream because there's nothing there. Okay, then we have the Eye of Number 4 series by Pittacus Lore. I feel like I didn't really see many people read this series back in the day, but I was really into it. It also had a movie adaptation, which you might be familiar with, but this is another one that's about aliens. So it's about this group of, I don't know how many, maybe like 10 to 12 aliens that came to Earth, and then what is the plot? It's something where like when each one dies, the other one gets like activated or something. I don't know, but we're following the guy who's number 4. They all have like numbered names, and 1, 2, and 3 die, and then he knows that he's next, and it's this other alien race that's like trying to kill them because they're the last ones of this race. Yep. That's what it is. I'm gonna say it's a good time because I did enjoy keeping up with this series, but it's not an ultimate fave. Then we have the Immortal series. I can't see who it's by, but this is the cover if you can see it. I'm gonna put this in a fever dream because I'm trying to think of the plot and it's not clear to me. I know it had to do with witches, and I know it had to do with a boarding school. I think I enjoyed it because I read the whole series, but clearly not a favorite. Let me know if you guys remember this one. Then we have the Inheritance Game. I'm gonna put it in holds up, my top tier. Another YA trilogy that I think is just killing it right now. One more book is left to come out, but highly recommend. Then we have Inkheart by Cornelia Funk, I think her name is. This is about characters who basically, when they read out loud, books or characters come out of the book, and then they can also read characters into the book. So in the first book, characters come out of the book, and of course it's the villains, and they're sort of like wreaking havoc on our world. And then later on in the series, characters go into a book. So it's really, really fun, very like whimsical, fantastical. I love it, and I'm gonna put it in holds up. I really need to reread this series because it is a favorite from back in the day. Okay, scrolling down, we have The Iron King. I think this series is called The Iron Fae by Julie Kagawa. This is one I don't see a ton of people talk about, but I really enjoyed it. It's about this girl whose brother gets abducted by the Iron King, who's like a fairy king. She has to go into the world of fairy and save him. Definitely gives me Labyrinth vibes, if you know that movie, which is one of my favorite movies. I'm gonna put it in a good time because again, it's not one of my favorites, but I feel like it would hold up now. And I think there's actually some new books in the series that came out that I need to buy, so need to get on that. Then we have King of Scars by Leigh Bardugo. I've only read the first one in this duology. Still need to read the second one, and I'm gonna put it in neutral. All of Leigh Bardugo's books that I've read so far are pretty neutral for me. I don't love them as much as a lot of people, but there's also people who absolutely hate these books, and I'm not there either, so pretty neutral. Then we have Kissed by an Angel by Elizabeth Chandler. This is a throwback. This is definitely a throwback. I remember it's about a girl whose boyfriend dies, and then he's kind of like a ghost or like an angel. Like we're seeing both of their points of view. I don't remember what the plot is, but I think maybe she's in danger, so that's why he's hanging around as like a ghost to save her or something like that. I can't even remember, but this woman made it into like a 3-part series. Probably not needed like most YA series. I kind of gonna put it in neutral. Then we have Magnus Chase and the Gods of Asgard by Rick Riordan. This is probably one of my favorite Rick series. Is it? No, that would probably be the Percy ones. I'm still gonna put it in a good time because I really recommend this series. Everyone talks about Percy Jackson, but honestly, check this series out too. It has really great rep and really fun characters. Ooh, then we have House of Night by PC Cast. This is a series that had like 15 books or like 10 or like a really high number of books, and again, they would be like super small. It's like, you don't need to put out this many books, but I would buy them all. I'd buy them all probably at like $20, $25 a piece. I was trash for them, and they were kind of trash as well. So I feel like I actually really like this series, but I think I'm gonna have to put it in Can Stay in 2010 because I just feel like they did not age well probably. This is about a vampire school. I know, similar to Vampire Academy. I actually kind of like this series more than Vampire Academy. Or did I? I don't know. It's not as well written, but it's really fun because all of the vampires have like an element affinity. So it combines vampirism with like having like affinities for like fire, water, air, earth, you know what I mean? Like kind of witchy vibes. So it's kind of fun, but it definitely has like cringy rating. Then we have Miss Peregrine's School for... No, Home for Peculiar Children by Ransom Riggs. I'm gonna put this in neutral. I feel like I don't have very strong feelings for this book and don't remember it a ton besides like the initial premise, which is that it's about this kid who stumbles upon this home for peculiar children. They have a bunch of weird little powers. Ooh, then we have the Need series by Carrie Jones. This is another series that I think is like underrated. I don't really hear many people or anyone actually talk about this, but it has to do with pixies, which are basically fairies. Like it had basically the same lore as fairies, and I absolutely love this series. I'm gonna put it in a good time. I think this has one of my favorite ships. If you're into fairy books, check out Need. It might be a little bit outdated because it's from back in the day, but I did really enjoy this, and it also has shapeshifters in it too, if I remember correctly. Then we have the Nick Chronicles, or the Chronicles of Nick by Sherilyn Kenyon. This is about this kid who is destined to be like a demon or destined to be evil. So his old self or his future self comes back to like warn him and be like, you need to like not become evil. Each book he has like a different adventure. There's a bunch of different like mythical creatures that he befriends, like different demons and stuff like that. It's pretty cool. I'm just gonna put it in neutral though. It's not one of my favorites, but it's pretty action packed. It's one of the few series I've read that had like a male main protagonist, and he was pretty cute and he was pretty funny. Next up we have the Nightshade series by Andrea Kramer. This is a shapeshifting series. Do I remember the exact plot? No, but I know it had to do with shapeshifters. I thought this was a weird one because the chosen one trope character actually was a love interest instead of being the main character. So it's kind of a spin on that, but I'm gonna say Can Stay in 2010, please. I remember like hate reading these books. I don't know if you had something like that before, but I remember just like hating the main romance and like the main characters, and it's like, why did I keep reading it? Then we have One of Us is Lying by Karen M. McManus. This is obviously like a newer YA thriller series that I've been enjoying. I think I'm gonna put it in a good time because I just don't like it as much as some of the other YA thriller series that we've talked about. Oh gosh, there's so many books. Okay, next we have Passenger by Alexandria Bracken. She wrote The Darkest Minds, and then she wrote this duology called Passenger, and it had to do with time travel. It was pretty fun. I think I'm just gonna put it in neutral though, just because like it hasn't really stuck with me. It was a duology, so not as long of a story, but it was pretty good in case you guys haven't heard of it because it's not that popular. If you want a time travel-y series where you get to see like different eras in the past, then you could check that one out. Then we have the Percy Jackson series. I'm obviously gonna, oh my god, I can't even reach up to the top. I'm obviously gonna put this in Holds Up. Then we have, the Kane Chronicles. So this was Rick Riordan's Egyptian series, which I'm glad I read because it's the only reason I know anything about Egyptian mythology. I'm gonna put this in a good time because all of Rick's books are a good time. Like you can never put them anything less. Then we have the Red Rising series by Pierce Brown. I'm currently reading this series. I haven't finished it yet, but I am enjoying it. It is a sci-fi series that's set like on Mars / in space. It's a dystopian kind of thing where like the society is separated into different factions, or they have like a colored caste system, and it's about our like lead character being from the lowest of the low and infiltrating the highest of the high and trying to kind of take them down from within. So I'm gonna put this in a good time. I would probably recommend this series, but it can get kind of heavy with the sci-fi and a little bit like convoluted, hard to understand. Then we have Cassandra Clare and Wesley Chu, I think his name is, their Magnus and Alex series called The Eldest Curses. This is actually the one Cassandra Clare series that I'm not gonna put so high because I don't think she had as much of an influence in this series as Wesley does. No offense to him, but it's just not the same as her style of writing, and I don't enjoy the portrayal of the characters and the story as much in these. So I'm just gonna put them honestly in neutral because they are kind of disappointing me, unfortunately. Then we have Shadow and Bone by Leigh Bardugo. As I said, all of her books are kind of neutral for me, so that's where we're gonna put it. But this is the beginning of her Grishaverse series, which is basically a like high fantasy series where people have different powers. Why are all of these books literally the same? Like, it's about people have powers. Then we have the Shiver series by Maggie Stiefvater. These are the only books by her I have read, but I literally have all the rest of her books on my TBR. Like, I really want to read them. I'm gonna put this in a good time. This was about werewolves or like shapeshifters again, and has a lot of romance. Then we have Six of Crows, so I'm gonna put that in neutral again. This was probably my favorite of her books that I've read, but I didn't like the second one really, so put it there. Oh, then we have Zodiac Academy, which I just read recently, the first book, and you know I'm gonna DNF. You just know it. Like, it was so bad to me, but I'm not big on bully romances, and I'm not big on like super smutty books, although this wasn't really smutty, but it had a lot of bully romance. Like, the romantic interests were terrible, so don't recommend. Then we have The Extraordinaries. That is going up to the top tier. This is a YA fantasy series about like superheroes, and it's super cute. It is a gay romance. A lot of like the main characters are LGBT, so if that sounds interesting to you, I really recommend it. Very fun, very funny. Then we have The Gathering by Kelly Armstrong. So this is actually a prequel series to like another one of her series that's gonna come up, but it's called the Darkness Rising series, I think. She's a Canadian author, so I don't think that many people have heard of her books. This series specifically has to do with shapeshifters, and it's like a teen fantasy, and I quite like her books, but I'm gonna put this one in neutral just because I prefer the main series more than this one. Then we have The Hollow. I'm gonna put this in Can Stay in 2010, please. This is one of those YA trilogies that I read this whole thing even though I didn't really care for it that much. It's kind of based off Sleepy Hollow, which is cool. Our main character is a classic like very emo girl because her best friend died, I think, and then she meets this boy probably in the graveyard if I remember correctly, and then he is someone from Sleepy Hollow. Is he Ichabod Crane or something like that? I don't know. It was something kind of weird like that, kind of had to do with ghosts and death and stuff like that. So it actually sounds cool, but I just don't think it delivered as much as I wanted it to. I didn't really like the main ship. Then we have the Iron Trial series by Cassandra Clare and Holly Black. This is a middle grade series, very much inspired by Harry Potter, I would say. Borderline a Harry Potter ripoff. It follows this trilogy of young mages. I think they call them mages in this book. They have to go through all these trials to get into this magic school. Our main character is very much chosen one, main character energy, like Harry. But it was a pretty cute series. I would maybe, I'll probably only put it in neutral. I don't think it's one of my favorites, but it had like a cool twist to it. Then we have the Heroes of Olympus series by Rick Riordan, and I'm gonna put this up at the top. This is his second series that follows Percy Jackson along with some other characters from Greek and Roman mythology. It's just great. It's just like top tier Rick Riordan content right there. Oh, then we have The Maze Runner. Can we put this in like a fever dream? Like what was this series? No, I still haven't even seen the last movie. I really should, because Dylan O'Brien and because I've read the books, I really should watch that movie. But this is a dystopian where all these kids wake up in this maze and they are trying to escape, and it's obviously some sort of like experiment or weird government thing going on, but I feel like I can't remember much about this book or this series, so we'll put it there. Then we have The Selection. This is about a girl again in a dystopian world. And it has a caste system, and she's kind of like in the middle. Like, her family's not too well off, but they're not like terrible. But they have this tradition with the prince, like with the royalty, that they do this sort of like bachelor style thing where he gets all these women to come and try and like win him over to find his wife. And so our main character named America gets chosen to go do that. I'm gonna say a good time. I actually read this recently, so it's not a nostalgic thing for me. I didn't read it back in the day. I read it recently and quite enjoyed it. It's definitely not like well written, ooh, like such great YA content, like something like Hunger Games, but it's just a fun time, like kind of silly. Not too much depth to it. Then we have The Summoning. So this is the other series by Kelly Armstrong that I mentioned, and this is better. It has to do with a group of kids at this sort of home, like mental health facility or something. It's one of those tropes where like they're told they all have like a mental illness, but really they have magical powers. So our main character is a necromancer, which I think is kind of cool because, you know, I've talked a lot about like vampires, shapeshifters, stuff like that, but you don't see a ton of things with like necromancy, so that was cool. But then of course there are wizard characters and shapeshifters as well, but these kids end up like going on the run from this like evil corporation that's trying to take advantage of them and their powers. Classic, but I really love this series, so I might honestly put it in holds up. I remember it being one of my favorites from back in the day, so let's put it there. Then we have the Throne of Glass series. I'm gonna put this neutral. I'm not as big of a fan of Sarah J Maas as a lot of people. There were certain books in the series I really liked and certain books that I really struggled to get through, but it has to do with this girl who is an assassin and she gets captured, then entered into this competition to win her freedom. It has a really good initial premise. I really liked the first book, but it really goes off from there and becomes a whole different thing. Okay, then we have Teeth. I never knew how to say this. Tithe or Teeth by Holly Black. I never read her Cruel Prince series. Not yet, I should say. I want to get to them. But this is a fairy series that I read like back in 8th grade. I don't think many people have read these books. They mostly talk about her Cruel Prince series. But I like these books. I think they were kind of interesting and probably one of my first introductions to fairy and like fairy lore. There's also some gay rep in here, which I feel like was not common back then. So that was cool. We're just gonna put it in neutral though. It's not really like a standout for me. Then we have To All the Boys I Loved Before by the Queen, Jenny Han. I'm gonna put this in holds up. This is a really cute contemporary romance series. Everyone knows it, but Lara Jean is just such an interesting character. I remember the series ending and I was so sad. I wanted to just keep reading about her life forever and her making cookies and her life with her family. It's a girl who's half Korean, half white, and her mother has recently died. She has multiple sisters, so that's the sort of stuff going on with her family. And then she enters into this fake dating situation with this boy. What was his name? I don't even remember now. But obviously the Netflix movies are out and everyone knows and loves it. Truly Devious, another one I'm gonna put in like the top tier. We got a lot of top tier series here. I'm a sucker for YA series, I think. This is about another teenage detective, so if you like A Good Girl's Guide to Murder, definitely check this one out. Although it takes place at a boarding school and our main character is trying to figure out the mystery that is specific to this boarding school. So that's a great one. Then we have Twilight. Oh, how do I rank Twilight? How do I rank Twilight? At one point, it would be in the top tier for me. I was so obsessed with it. But having read Midnight Sun within the last couple years when it came out, I maybe would have to say can stay in 2010. Just because I don't know if this series would really age well. I don't know. I don't know. I feel like my love for it has faded a little bit. So we'll put it there, but just know this did have a really big impact on me at one point. Then we have the Mara Dyer series. This is an older series, but it's a case where like I read it recently, so it doesn't have that nostalgic thing for me, but I quite liked it, so we're gonna put it in a good time. But it's about this character named Mara Dyer who survived this accident, but all of her friends didn't. Oh, this is another trope that I feel like I've already talked about. So again, a very like emo teen who's gone through something dramatic and then mysterious things start happening. She's kind of an unreliable narrator because it seems like there's some wacky stuff going on with her mentally. Sorry, I think wacky was like an insensitive thing to say, but it seems like she's losing time. There's dark stuff going on with her. It's almost like a thrillery kind of fantasy series. So I quite liked it. I think it holds up. Then we have Vampire Academy. I'm gonna put this in a good time. This is similar to House of Night as it's about a vampire boarding school, Vampire Academy, but I think it was better written and just like better put together. But it's kind of cool because in this series there's different types of vampires. I was gonna say good romances, but I wasn't a huge fan of the main romance. This is actually becoming a TV show and like I'm so excited for it. Then we have Vampire Kisses. I think this is kind of like a fever dream series to me. I don't know if I ever finished it, but it's one of those YA series that had like a million books coming out. I think I was lending them from a friend and I don't think I ever like stayed caught up on this series because I didn't own them. I don't know, but it's another classic thing where there's this goth girl and then she falls in love with a vampire that lives like down the street. Then we have the Wake series. Who read this? It was a trilogy. Guys, I've been talking too long about these books. Trilogy about this girl who would like dream walk. Is that what it's called? Sleepwalk? I think she could go into people's dreams. And then it was a whole trilogy centered around that. And I don't remember a lot, so ooh, we have another fever dream. And that's relevant because it's about dreams. I haven't read too many books about dreams, so I guess in that way it is unique. But yeah, as I said, I don't really remember a lot. Obviously there's a romance in it. Then we have the Wicked Lovely series by Melissa Marr, another Canadian author. So love to support her. Again, if you like fairies, this is a fairy series, and it's actually the first fairy series I ever read. So it was pretty interesting to learn about the different courts and different fairy mythology here. Pretty good. I would recommend it. I liked multiple romances. Each book follows a different character, which is kind of cool. You get to see characters from different courts. Some follow fairies, some follow like humans that are getting mixed up in the fairy stuff. Pretty good. So I'm gonna put it in a good time. Guys, my computer is overheating. There was so many series in this. I think there was like 70. I'm sorry if you were sitting through this. Okay, next we have Wings by April Lynn Pike, another fairy series. I'm telling you, I was on the fairy train before it existed. Like, Sarah J Maas created the fairy trend, but I read like at least 5 different fairy series before that. This was an interesting take because it kind of made fairies be similar to plants. Now it sounds kind of dumb, but it was almost like, so this teenage girl is growing wings out of her back suddenly, and it's kind of reminiscent of like plants, like she needs to be watered or something. I can't quite remember, but it was like a different take on it, you know what I mean? It was an okay series. It was one of those ones where, again, I didn't love the main romance. I went through a phase of only liking the other guy in the love triangle, like Jacob Black, or like, you know, Damon with Vampire Diaries. I just always would like the other tip in the love triangle. So it's one of those situations, so I'm gonna put it in neutral. Then we have Witches of East End. Don't even know who this is by, but I think I DNF'd this series. I think I have the books though, so I probably should get rid of them because I just didn't really care about this. I think it follows like 3 different witches in this one family. I think this might be an adult series, and I read it as a teen and I was like not really jiving with it. Not a lot of memories about it. Our final series we have is Wondrous Strange by Leslie something. It's gonna be on the screen. She's another Canadian author, and it's another fairy series. So again, if you want more fairy recs, check out her books. She actually has multiple fairy books, but this is the only one I remember. This is about a girl, I think it takes place in New York. She's trying to be an actor on Broadway, I think. She gets wrapped up in like the fairy world in New York. So if you like theater as well, you would maybe like this series. There's obviously romance in it. I think because of the theater elements, it does talk a lot about Shakespeare's Midsummer Night's Dream, which, if you don't know, kind of has like fairy stuff going on in that book. I'm gonna put it in neutral though. It's not really like my favorite, didn't really stick with me a ton. So this is my ranking of all the book series that I've read. So definitely recommend everything in this top tier. And then obviously don't read the ones in the lower tier. Okay, so that is tier ranking all the book series that I've read. Let me know if you have any thoughts, if I brought back some nostalgic memories for you. I definitely brought them back for myself. Let me know what you thought about this tier ranking, and please subscribe if you have not already for future bookish videos. Thank you. Hope you have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you next time. Bye.